Shalom, how's everyone doing? Today's day 18 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and we'll be learning Siman Gimel Seif Beis. Okay, let's get started. Ein holchin bechukos ovdei kochavim. One cannot follow in the minhagim of the goyim. Velo mistamin lahem. We shouldn't imitate them. Lo v'malbush, neither in the way we dress. Velo b'sei'ar v'chayetzeven, neither in our hairstyle or something similar to that. Shneimar, we have a few psukim to this effect. Velo se'elchu b'chukos hagoy. One should not walk in the ways of the goyim. V'neimar also says v'chukosem lo selichu, don't go in their ways. Hishamer l'cha pentina keish achareihem. Beware for yourself, lest you follow them. Okay. Lo yilbush malbush hamiyucha lahem l'shum geos. One cannot wear clothing that is specified to them for a haughtiness. V'hu malbush sarim, like clothes that their officials wear. Ula dugma, for example, the Gemara gives an example of what would be a garment like that. De aser li Yisrael hestamos lahem, that it's aser for a Jew to imitate them, afilu b'rtzuas amina, even in the way somebody ties their shoes. Shem hayadar kam likshrekach, if the goyim have a way of tying their shoes, v'derech Yisrael be'inin acher, and the Jews tie their shoes in a different way. Osha hayaminhagam liyos lahem rtzuos adumos, or they have a minhag to have red shoelaces, v'shal Yisrael shechoros, and the Jews have a minhag to have black shoelaces. Mishum ditzeva shechora moral nava v'shiflos utznius, because the color black, it represents like humbleness, shiflos, like that we're low down, utznius, and that we're modest. Aser li Yisrael l'shanos. Then it's aser for a Jew to change his to change. So each person should learn according to his time and place. That any cloth that is made for haughtiness or for pritzos, lo yasa Yisrael kin. A Jewish person cannot do that. Ela malbusha v'yu asuyin be'inyan hamora al hachna v'shiflos utznius. The clothes of a Jewish person should dignify our humbleness before Hashem and our tznius. This is what it says in the Sifri. Shelo tamar, you shouldn't say hoel ve'hen yotzim ba'argaman af ani yotzim ba'argaman. They go out with purple, so I go out with purple. Hoel ve'hen yotzim b'kelusin perish klei. They go out with armor. Af ani yotzim b'kelusin, so too I'll go out with the armor. Shedvar halal divrei shachatz v'gai v'hem. These are arrogant and haughty practices. V'lo cha'ila chelak Yaakov. And it's not befitting for the house of Yaakov. Ella darkam liyos tzinuyim va'anavim. It's the way of the Jewish people to be tznius and to be humble. V'lo lefnos el rahavim, and not to turn to arrogance. V'chein, similarly, kol davar shenagu leminagu l'chok. Anything that the goyim do that they have as a minhag or as like a law. Di'ika lemechos sheyish bo shemetz akum. And there's a reason we should be concerned that it actually stems from avodah zara. Lo yasa Yisrael kain, a Jewish person cannot do. V'chein, similarly, lo yigalach, a person shouldn't cut his hair. V'lo yigadel sa'eros rosho kamohem, you shouldn't grow his hair like them. Eli yehem uvdal mehem, he should be separate from them. V'balbusha v'v'diburu v'shor masav, in his clothes, in his speech, and his actions. Kimoshu muvdal mehem b'mada'o v'deosav, just as he is different from them in the way what he believes in and the way he acts. V'chein omer, as the pasuk says, v'avdil aschem min ha'amim, I have separated the Jewish people for me. Okay, so there's a lot in the Seif, right? This Seif is the Isser of chukos akum. So what's the whole story? So there's an Isser d'oraisa called chukos akum. There's an Isser d'oraisa that Rambam says you got malchus for following in the ways of the goyim. So what all the Rishonim deal with is like, okay, there's an Isser called chukos akum. What does that include, right? Just because a guy does something, you can't do it, right? For example, a guy wear pants. They wear pants. Jews can't wear pants. Like, is that just because a guy does something, a Jew can't? So there's different approaches in the Rishonim. We'll quote one approach that has rejected the halacha, and that is the approach of the Sefer Yereim, right? The Beis Yosef quotes it, the Bach quotes it. That the Yereim says we don't know what falls under the category of a chok akum. We don't know what falls under the category of a minhag of a goy that we can't follow. So he says, since we have no right to know, we only know what the Gemara tells us. So he says, you should look in the Tosefta, in Shabbos, Parak Vav, and he gives the list of things that are minhagim of goyim that we can't follow. Right, including the list over there is you're not allowed to wear a red string on your finger. That was a chukakum. You're not allowed to throw money into the sea. You're not allowed to dance to fires. Right, he gives a whole list, and he says that is what chukos akum is. Right, even these days. Right, those things that the Gemara mentions were a chok akum. We don't know why those things were mentioned. Right, the Tosefta says it was really like avodah zarah practices, but that's what we know we can't do. So too we can't do that. All the Mefarshim disagree. All right, if you look in the Bach himself, best person who puts it clearly is the Minchas Chinuch in Siman Rishon and Aleph, and he says no. The whole issue of chukos hakum is that you cannot walk in the ways of the goyim. So this is something that changes every generation, right? According to the Yereim, okay, the Gemara gave examples of what you can't do, and that still applies according to the Yereim. But according to the other Mefarshim, right, like as the Minchas Chinuch points out, it's a generation thing, right? You have to look to your generation. You have to see what is a gayish minhag in your generation, and that you can't do, right? So even though, right, true, back in the times of the Gemara, those were gayish minhagim, and as the Bach points out, we still can't do them these days. But you have to look at each generation what a chok of a goyim are, and that is something that you cannot do. So if that's not the getter, what is, right? So we still have our question, right? Goyim in our generation, they wear pants. Does that mean we can't wear pants? All right, that's the question. So the best person who sums up the whole thing very clearly is the Ramah in Siman Kufay and Ches, Seif Aleph, and I'll just read it because he puts the sugya very clear. He's quoting the Aruch. He says, "Yehem uvdal mehem b'malushim v'sharmasav." Right, we have to be different than the goyim in our dress and our actions. V'chol ze ino aser ele b'davar shenagu ba'goyim l'shon pritzas kemo shenagu l'ilvosh malbushim adumim. Right, first iser is if the goyim have a minhag, and that minhag stems from pritzas, from immodesty. We cannot follow that minhag. An example the Ramah gives is let's say the goyim have a minhag to wear a certain red outfit. So therefore we cannot go and follow that minhag of also wearing red outfits. So that's one category of the Isra of chukos hakum. The next category is O b'davar shenagu leminhagu l'chok ve'ein tam b'davar. The ikalamecha shpei mishum darchei amori v'sheyish bo shemetz avodah zarah me'avoseihem. Another thing is something that the goyim do, still talking about in your generation, something the goyim do, and we have no clue why they do it. We just don't know. There's no good reason. We could think about it. There's just no good reason. That you can't do. Why not? Because we're afraid it actually stems from avodah zarah sources. And if you would do these things, you're kind of admitting to the avodah zarah. An example that comes to that the post can really talk about is right. There's a minhag that people have on their birthdays that they blow out birthday candles. Right? Think about it. There's no logical reason. Why are they blowing out birthday candles? And if you actually look through the origin of that minhag, it actually probably does stem from avodah zarah. So, like the Ramah says, if you don't know a reason for a goyish minhag, it probably has its sources in avodah zarah. But then he says, okay, if it doesn't fit in these two categories, right? One, if it's not pritzas. Two, if we could think of a reason, then it's actually not going to be chukos hakum. So he gives an example. The Ramah gives an example. He says, so you know what's okay? Wearing a doctor's coat, right? Makes sense, wearing a doctor's coat, right? We're not going to say oh man, there's a goyish minhag for doctors to wear coats, special coats. No, they wear a special coat, so people know they're a doctor, right? People will go to them and, and they could do their profession as a doctor. That would not fall into the category of chukos hakum. So our original question about wearing pants, yeah, that's a minhag that makes a lot of sense, there's a good reason for it. A big question that's discussed over here, right? We said there's these two things that are a problem. One is the minhag that the goyim do because of pritzas, and one is the minhag they do because there's no reason for it. So going back to this pritzas thing, or something that the post can talk about a lot here, it really stems from the Bach. The Bach says you have to be careful not to have the same haircuts as goyim. So you're going to ask me, what's the problem? The Bach says clearly, and the Shach and the Tas quote him, they say, yeah, if the goyim have a minhag to have a haircut in a specific way, and we follow that is actually considered a minhag of pritzas, right? Because what's pritzas? Pritzas is, trying to stick out, trying to be very showy, right? So if you have a haircut, right, like that the goyim have, that they describe, like they leave a lot of hair in the front, like that you're trying to be very showy, and that is actually a minhag of pritzis, right? So the question is, like, is that something we have to be careful about? If like the goyim like have a haircut trend, haircut style, is it a problem of chukos akum to go and follow that style? So Rav Ovadia has a tshuva in Yichavedas. This is in Chilek Beis Siman Beis. He says it might be a problem, right? Because it's a minhag of pritzos. So how can you follow it? But then he quotes the shita that seems to be mikol. It's the shita of the Shalos Yeshuvas Beis Yehuda, and he says he's actually really talking about giving kids haircuts that seem to follow the goyim. And he says it could be that's okay. Why is it okay? Because it might only be a problem of chukos akum if the reason you're doing that chok, the reason you're doing that minhag is to imitate the goyim. But in these cases of haircuts, he says that's not the reason why people get these fancy haircuts, these showy haircuts. They actually get these showy haircuts because they think it looks nice, right? If you ask them why you're getting a haircut like that, they won't answer you that it's to follow because this is what the goyim do. They'll say like they think it looks nice. Right, as opposed to, right, the Kitzur quoted these cases in the Gemara about, changing the shoelace. Right? If you ask these Jews why they would change their shoelace to red shoelaces, they would say, because that's what the Goyim doing. Like, they have no other reason. Like, they don't think it probably doesn't look nice to a red shoelace over a black shoelace. It's because they wanted to follow the Goyim, as opposed to a haircut maybe, that maybe the haircut with a lot of hair on the front, maybe that actually looks nice, so maybe it would be okay. But even so, Rav Ovadia ends the tshuva, and he says, still, B'nai Torah, they should be careful. Why should they be careful? Because there's a different Gemara. There's a Gemara, Maseches Nazir, and Maseches Adarim. It quotes a story of a guy who had very nice hair, and then he saw a reflection of himself. And then, he saw his nice long hair, and the Yetzer Hara was, trying to trap him. So he accepted upon himself to become a Nazir, because the halacha is at the end of a person's Naziris, he shaves his head. So this guy, he knew the Yetzer Hara got a hold of him because of his long hair, because of his nice hair. So he wanted to prevent that from, he wanted to prevent the Yetzer Hara by getting a hold of him by shaving his head. So therefore, even though possibly we wouldn't be over on the Issa D'Oraisa of Chukos Akum if we have a haircut, like a fancy haircut that looks like the Goyim, but maybe it's still a problem because it, provokes the Yetzer Hara. Okay, shkoyach.